What are some of the challenges you've faced, or the challenges you see others face being African American, whether they be socio-political, or in business? Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think there's a lot of challenges. I think there's challenges in life in general, but specifically pertaining to being black and or African American. It's the presumption of, I guess, stereotypes. I work in a field. I started in skateboarding and surfing, snowboarding over 20 years ago, and at that time I got it on all sides. Right, my grandparents and my family didn't understand what I was doing. They thought that it was weird that I was on a board or had to do anything with boards. And then, as you start to grow in your career, you run into people, and I think a lot of times they don't necessarily think of themselves as, having stereotypes or being stereotypical. But they place, glass ceilings and a lot of, beliefs that they've been raised with on you, and they think maybe you're not as educated, or they think you should act a certain way or talk a certain way, or you might not be black, or I get a lot of people that think that I wasn't raised in a good home, or surprised that I have a dad, things like that. They come up anecdotally, or they come up, kind of in conversation. And I think 9 times out of 10, it's just ignorance of individuals, not necessarily something that they're trying to do. There's definitely racists out there, but I think that there are those that have unconscious biases more often than not, so that they're unaware of it, and they sometimes say some very ignorant things. And that comes from all sides. That comes from minorities as well.
What types of changes do you believe are needed to take place in order to meet some of those challenges that you faced?
Education. Education is key for us to grow. We need more people to be educated. I think currently, right now, we need to get our current president out of office. I think the current administration has taken us back over 30 to 40 years. They've delivered a platform in this country for those that have been outliers or outside of what was acceptable. And we're seeing racism come back in an alarming rate.
Okay, so that was my next question was, do you think Trump promotes hatred towards minorities? So I know you lived overseas. Um, how did you follow the campaign, and what was going on? Um, were there any specific news stations? Was it social media? And what were you seeing not being here in the United States?
I think it was all of the above. I mean, living overseas, we still had cable. You still have cable news, a lot of CNN, Bloomberg, which is probably more European. But we had all of the news, modern day news channels. And to be honest, when something happens in the United States at the presidential level, every major company in the world, every major country in the world is paying attention. So there was a lot of conversation about it, and to be honest, there was a lot of jokes being made about it. So there was actually a really funny skit that was done on Saturday Night Live about Amsterdam, and Donald Trump, if I remember correctly, during while he was running for president, which had something along the lines of, "Hey, if America's going to be first, and you're only going to care about America, can you care about Amsterdam and the Netherlands second?" Those kind of things. So information is pretty free with social media, so we were able to follow very, very closely. And I would say that people in other countries tend to be a little bit closer to politics than the average American, and that's at least from my understanding of the circles that I run in. So we followed the elections really closely for personal reasons too, right?
Yeah. So I know you have children. How Did you let your children watch any of the media coverage, or how did you explain to them? Was there certain limitations on what you let them see in the news? Because there were some pretty graphic protests and things like that.
Yeah, it's funny when you live overseas. Like, the kids went to an international school, and international curriculum is much more open to debate than what I've seen and what I'm used to in the United States. So Judd and Gibb were very much involved in the elections, and their teachers actually spoke to them a lot about both sides of what was going on in the United States. I actually think they were much more in tune than the average student their age in America at the time. Did we keep them from watching? We try not to allow them to watch things that are too negative on television, and nor do we watch very much television. But we did speak to them a lot about the election and what was going on at the time. I got a really funny story actually about that I have to tell you at some point.
What's my next question? How did you react to the presidential election? How has the election affected you after, and how have things changed since the election for you?
Perfect. I can tell you a story. So, I woke up. Actually, I went to bed that night, the night of the election, and I told my wife. I said, and let me be clear. For the most part, I've always been conservative. I was actually registered Republican at that time, but Donald Trump was not anyone that I wanted to support, nor did I think he had the ability to run our country, and nor do I think that now. But we went to bed that night, and we were 9 hours ahead of you guys here in Southern California and 6 hours ahead of the East Coast. And we went to bed, and I told Shannon, there's not a chance in the world. Don't worry about it. That guy can't win. And sure as shit, I woke up the next morning at about 4:35 in the morning, and I wanted to check, and they were calling it for Donald Trump, and I was in disbelief. And I remember Shannon waking up very quickly and saying, what happened? And I told her, and she just started crying, and she's not very political either. But the crazy thing is the boys woke up. And when the boys woke up, they came in the room, they said, who won the election? And I said Donald Trump, and they both cheered. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And so I pulled Judd aside, who's my older. He's 12-year-old, as you know, and I asked him, I said, so why didn't you want Donald Trump to win? And, what he said was quite startling to me, and we've had to have a lot of conversations about it, but it was along the lines of, we wanted a boy to win. And I think at the, in the age of, fourth grade, fifth grade, that's tolerable, but definitely something that we have to work on with our children. I think how it's affected us is, like I said, it goes back to racism, right? There's now a platform for racists in this country that hasn't existed, in my opinion, for at least the last 20 or 30 years. You can feel this country being very different today than when I left it just 3 years ago.
Okay.
Is this working for you, or are you getting enough depth? Do you want more depth or less depth?
No, you're good. Okay, so now we're going to talk about work a little bit. So something big that happened recently was the Colin Kaepernick campaign, or Nike ad that was put out. Do you know how it was, from your marketing background, how would that be introduced? Would it be like a focus group that introduces it, or is it like one person? How do companies like Nike, how do they come up with ads like that?
Okay. So because you're going to present this, I have to say this. This is completely, from my own opinion and having nothing to do with Nike Inc. or any of the companies within Nike Inc. I'm speaking as Rodney Rambo, not as the VP and GM of Nike Inc. I just have to do that to kind of protect the brand and myself.
Yeah.
The way that works is essentially you pitch a brief, right? And the way that one kind of worked, I would assume, is you can assume let's just say maybe a year, 2 years ago, because those campaigns take about anywhere from 16 to 24 months to build. I build a brief, really thinking about what is going on in the world today, and opportunities to really connect with consumers, and pull at their heartstrings, really finding those simple human truths. That it doesn't happen in brand very often. You're always striving for it, but you may get 1 or 2 of those in your career that are going to cause that big of a reaction. And you basically pitch it. You build a full plan behind it with the consumer in the center. And really with Kaepernick, I think what the idea was, hey, at the end of the day, it's really about you going the full distance, going all the way in for something that you believe in. Now, again, this is my belief on how that came to light. I actually can't talk about how it really came to light.
Yeah. I know there's limitations to that. So from you, see,
that's a tough one, Sarah, because I was involved with it, and legally I can't talk about it.
Yeah, no, I figured. Was there anyone? It doesn't have to be through work, because I don't think you can answer that. But was there anyone, like, personally that you were associated with that it could be like a wife or a friend who, after the ad came out, may have reacted negatively towards you, knowing that you are associated with the company?
Oh yeah, I received several phone calls from family members. So Shannon's parents. Shannon's dad was a police officer in Long Beach. Her brother is a police officer in Long Beach. Grandfather, so on and so forth. They were all very, very upset. I had people come to my house in Orange County that knew that I worked for Nike, and they were all very upset as well. And I told them all the same thing. First and foremost, I had never been happier to be a Nike employee ever in my life. Second, I said, at the end of the day, all the company is trying to do is say, we want to highlight people that are willing to put it all on the line for the right causes and for what they believe in. The Colin Kaepernick, and again, this is not Nike, this is my belief now. The Colin Kaepernick play and brand campaign was taking an amazing step forward to say it really wasn't about the flag. I don't believe Colin Kaepernick's positive message had anything to do with the flag, just like Rosa Parks didn't have anything to do with the bus. They were both making a stand at the time, and I'm not trying to say Colin Kaepernick is Rosa Parks, but I believe that these individuals are making stands, and they're using what they have to cause attraction to something that is going on, to a cause that they want to identify. And I think Colin did a really good job at that. And so when people came to me really pissed off about it and said, hey, they're disrespecting the military, I really pushed back and I said, do your homework. That's not it at all. Colin was asked to kneel by an ex-special service member, a military member. He's never once said anything about the military. It's not about the flag. That was all made up as a ploy by our president and somebody that had different. It was made up by Trump because he had a different agenda. It had nothing to do with the flag. It had to do with leveling the playing field for police brutality and things that were going on in our country and continue to go on in our country that are focusing on minorities in the wrong way.
Okay. you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, if you can't answer this. But were there any people in the company that were not for the ad?
Yeah, I can't speak to that.
No. Okay.
You can imagine, though. You can imagine that on a topic like that, not everybody's going to agree. But I can't speak to specifics on Nike.
Okay. How do you think? Um, how do you think that the news coverage, just about minorities in general, has influenced not only like Nike, but all businesses, whether they be international or at home?
I think genuinely most large companies and brands um, believe in democracy and try to include all races and all genders of human beings. Tough to say about the news. I think it, if you're talking about local news and even global news, I think you got to do your homework and you got to listen to multiple sources to really try to find what you believe to be right. But ultimately, I think brands try, for the most part, to be extremely inclusive rather than exclusive. And that is, I think, what is so difficult about our president today. He's flipped democracy and he's using terms like nationalism, and he's trying to make those terms a positive when they really are a negative. It's very rare that I run into businesses that would have that type of divisive language. I just don't think you last very long in the public outside of this president, but definitely as a business when you're so narrowly focused.
All right, that was my last question.